Clancy's something or other. And I want it to work like that, and everyone in the room goes, but it's third person. It doesn't work like that because you have to be able to see the character. And he's like, no, I just want it to be that way. You know, you don't have to do that kind of stuff. You're not subject to the whims of someone that plays video games once a week.
Well, I can talk a little bit on that before I pass it along here. I think that's one of the great things about small studio is you kind of have a little more flex room for just making the type of game that you want to make. And with a bigger studio, you're a little bit beholden to appealing to like producer types that want to get a specific goal in mind, like audience of like males, females, this age to that age, that sort of thing. But also, like looking at games from those type of studios, you can kind of almost tell like what was made, like designed by committee, where like almost devoid of creativity, just like trying to like fill a void where they need a product, versus something that's created like almost more as art or as just like trying to express a feeling, like that sort of thing. You definitely feel a difference in that sort of thing, I feel. And I think one of the fascinating things about that even is, if you've tried making a game in a genre that you don't like, it's an interesting challenge because it kind of gives you a perspective onto why some of the decisions are made. Actually, you have a screenshot of, okay, there was a game jam recently called, can I say it? I don't know if I can say that. It's called F This Jam. And basically what it is the challenge is to make a game in a genre that you hate. So my game is called Sports Balls Game. And here's the thing, like I don't know anything about sports really. Like I watch the Super Bowl sometimes, and like I watch it for the commercials. But like it was really interesting to me because without like understanding the rules, that's actually a screenshot from the game. I worked on it for almost 24 hours, so like I put a lot of work into this. Yes, I got all that I did all of it from Google Images, all by myself. But wait, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so like the object of the jam was to make a game in a genre that you hate, and I think I gained a new appreciation for this genre. I understand sports now. Like I get how sports work, and I think I know how to play football now. And I think the point I was trying to make there was that the experience of making something out of passion versus just like forcing yourself to make something out of like trying to fill a void. Yeah, it's a different experience, but it's one of the really great benefits right now of being in a small studio. You can just make a game because like I had a cool idea and I wanted to make this thing. Like I just like woke up from bed and I just like went and prototyped the thing, and that doesn't exist at a big studio. And I think that's kind of unfortunate because that's where really some of the great ideas are happening. Just like on a whim, I wanted to try something. Maybe it sucks, but like, hey, I did a thing.
Well, I wanted to say. In the case of Skullgirls, I think we were lucky that we actually, because Skullgirls is a game with a publisher, which I guess kind of makes it not indie. Yeah, I guess so. Well, we got lucky in that our publisher really let us do what we wanted to do with the game, whereas I believe when you guys were pitching it, like you guys talked to like Yubi and Sega and some people, and I think the question that always came up was, why aren't there any guys in the roster? And it was because that was never the intention. It was never. I don't know if you want to go into that. But.
Sure. I mean, like like I was mentioning earlier, it was inspired by those games that I had seen. Like Melting Blood and EFC, which is like primarily female audience, and also just because of the origin of where it came from, and like because of the character designs that I had at that time, and also like the Monster Girl kind of thing. So I kind of just had like a collection of those type of characters, and that's kind of the original direction that I was going with, and the inspiration, the source of it came from those things. So that's kind of why it ended up starting off like that.
Yeah. So we got lucky in that we actually found someone that was like, hey, we really like your idea. Make your idea how you want it. And so, Skullgirls, like the core team is pretty much us and cleanup artist, Richard. And we pretty much had, you know, all the creative control in the game. You know, John and I were animating everything, and we were putting lots of dumb stuff in there. And, you know.
Let's do our own PR, yo.
Oh, and that's also another thing, that we could do our own PR how we saw fit without big, I don't know, big schedules and budgets, and I don't know what goes into that.
Yeah, sure. That first trailer was done by a PR firm that wasn't us. I don't know if anyone here has actually seen it, but it was the most awful thing in the world. Basically, that was given to us, and we all went, this has very little to do with the game that we're making, and it's not the right tone, and it's also kind of cheesy, and then they put it out, and then we said, you know what, we'd like to do the PR. And they said, okay. And, I mean, huh?
I don't know.
It's awful. I mean,
Let's see how bad it is.
YouTube has Girls trailer.
Let's do it.
Oh, sorry.
anyway, I don't know, Derek, do you want to talk while they're looking for that? Or John?
I just wanted to mention, so one thing that's really nice about small studios is that, like they were saying before, that in larger studios, basically marketing runs the show. Like at Ubisoft, did you know that like Prince of Persia, Assassin's Creed, they create the main character just by going, oh, what's a popular Hollywood star right now? Oh, fuse those two guys together and that's our protagonist. And when I heard that, I was like, wait, are you serious? It's like disgusting. And, like that's basically marketing runs everything. And if the game doesn't sell, marketing just goes, oh, well, obviously it was the development's fault, or the market, whatever. People don't like it. They never go, oh, we had a dumb idea, or this.
A lot of the time, when a game does poorly, their response will be, well, obviously no one wants a game in that genre, right? Instead of like, maybe we made that badly, or maybe it wasn't a popular franchise, like they didn't really want to see soccer moms fighting. The response will almost always be like, well, we tried to make a fighting game, no one bought it. Obviously no one wants fighting games. And to me that's really depressing, because if you can admit that the game that you made was maybe rushed or not well designed or whatever else, then you can improve upon that. And one of the nice things at indie game companies is there's no shortage of people willing to blame other people when something goes wrong. But for serious, like, we can turn to each other and go, you know what, we didn't really spend very much time on, we didn't put enough in story mode, or we didn't put enough in tutorials or whatever, and like admit that it was a problem and actually try to fix it, as opposed to being forced to not acknowledge that anything went wrong and say that the game was developed totally perfectly and obviously no one wants games that are like this anymore.
And yeah, one big difference is that with a smaller team, everyone has a similar passion, they want to do it, whereas in a big company, everyone just clocks in 9 to 5, they have like a toxic mentality, they just don't even care about the project. Whereas on a small team, everyone's really into it. They talk to each other about things like, programmers will talk to artists, and artists talk to programmers going, oh, what if you do this, or what are you guys working on? And then there's like a real sense of collaboration going on. Whereas, yeah, just huge studios are just, like, they don't even look at each other, they're just boxed in their own little rooms without knowing what's going on. They don't care at all, it's just, yeah.
I think the cool thing about, like, if it's a small group and there's toxic people is you can totally, like, ice them out easily, whereas the other one you're, like, forced to, like, work with them, and that kind of sucks.
Not so.
Do you guys want to check out the back door?
Yes.
Sorry.
I wonder how bad it is.
Oh man, this thing sucks.
There's
so
no
much.
sound, but
That's fine.
There we go.
Just imagine like cheesy. Yeah, just imagine like cheesy 90s pop.
Oh wait.
oh wait.
Put that there. Like, but no, like,
That's really
twist it, turn away.
Wow.
We actually ended up
putting that story on. Nice.
Wow.
Why is everything rainbow?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was
Wow.
Well, anyway, so that has basically nothing to do with what we wanted the game to be. We actually ended up using that hot 2D fighting thing in Peacock story mode because it was so awful. But so this is an example of like what will happen at a big studio is like they give the PR to the PR people, and it may have nothing to do with the vision that the team actually has for the game. And this ended up being a really good example of it because all the rest of our PR was us. Like, we got to pick who made the videos, we picked someone that we knew from the fighting game community that also had video making experience, and like, this stuff turned out to to carry the flavor that we wanted it to carry, and we had lots of control over it, as opposed to just like, this is what your commercial looks like. And I guess the cohesiveness is really nice, you know, like, you can do anything at a smaller game company. There's nothing that's out of your control.
I guess you want to... Well, I was just going to say that, you know, from a developer's standpoint too, it's really nice that you can set your own schedule. I mean, I think the nice thing about being independent is really that you are independent. So, for example, like with Spelunky, we released it on XBLA, and the plan from the start was just to release on XBLA first. And now we're thinking about other platforms, but you know, after the release, like Andy Hall, the lead programmer, and we decided to take a nice big break afterwards and just do other things, and we could. And yeah, I don't know. I think just being able to work the way you like is also just it's a big perk of being independent. You know, you don't have to do meetings if you don't want to. You know, you don't have to do like a meeting every day if you don't want to. You don't have to do any meetings. You know, I do a lot of my best thinking just like walking around, you know, and I can just do that. I can just leave the house and just walk around and think about what I want to do next. And you make a lot of decisions very quickly. With Aquaria, we made some huge changes in the game, like the core ideas behind the game. We made these big changes pretty last minute, and we could do that because it was just the two of us. We could talk it over, and we could decide to do this thing, and we did. And one of the big changes that we made to the game was that initially the game was very much more like a JRPG. There's supposed to be towns with lots of characters and lots of dialogue and text boxes and all of that. And right before the IGF, the Independent Games Festival deadline for the game, we decided that, you know, this really wasn't working for us, and we wanted to focus more on the main character. You know, make it feel maybe a little more like Metroid, say, versus like a JRPG. We decided to go with a voice actor so that there wouldn't be any text boxes cluttering things up and ruining the flow of the game. And these are decisions we made very quickly. There's very fast turnaround. And you know, when you're independent, you really have to use these advantages that you have, because you do have some disadvantages being such a small team with such small resources. But for me personally, like, the advantages totally outweigh the disadvantages. And you know, I mean, if it ever got to the point where I wanted to make like some massive MMORPG, you know, maybe I'd go find a big team to deal with. But you know, in the meantime, like, the types of games I want to make are relatively focused and are totally, I think, in this day and age, with the tools that we have now with the internet, you know, it makes collaboration so easily. It makes it so easy to find the right people to work with you. If you find the right people, you can do a lot with a really small team. Especially because I think, I won't even say these days, but I think you find these types of people more where, you know, they can do a lot more than just like one thing. You know, like, I think at a big company you get like someone who's just 3D modeling all the trash in the game or something like that. You know, you get like a guy who models soda cans or something like that. And which is fine. I mean, it's awesome to have specialists, but you know, for on an indie team like you, I have found that a lot of teams work with people that wear a lot of hats, can wear a lot of hats, and you know, unlike a specialist, they may not be like the best programmer in the world, but you know, they'll totally make up for it by being good at other aspects of game creation, like art, design, you know, all these different things that go into games. So I think, you know, these days it's like, I mean, you're seeing it, right, with all these games. It's with all these smaller teams being very successful. So you can it's very viable to make a small or make a great game with a small team with all the resources that you have now. And I think, yeah, the advantages for me really outweigh the disadvantages of being small. You're very agile, and you can really make the most out of someone's talents, I think, on your team.
Yeah, going on like the specialist versus someone who wears a lot of hats. I think it's also interesting that like my job is just lead animator, but it also means that I'm dealing with all our contractors, and then toward the end of the project I was helping doing illustrations for the story mode, and then it came down to that we needed help writing the scripts. So then I was writing a little bit, and it kind of forces you to work in ways you wouldn't expect. Which is actually pretty awesome because you become more well-rounded and cool. So I think that's a lot more interesting because you're constantly pushing yourself, you're forcing yourself to think in new ways and tackle different problems instead of being the trash guy modeler.
I don't mean that as a diss, really, to the I just want to make that clear. Like, that guy's going to be the best there is at modeling, the trash that blows around in GTA or whatever. But I'm just saying, as an independent developer, you can leverage the other talents that person may have or whatever.
Really quickly. By the way, if this sounds depressing, like if us getting up here and saying, at an indie developer you can actually do the stuff that you want to do sounds depressing because it sounds like at a large company you can't, that's kind of the reality of it. Like, I was an animation programmer at Pandemic, which meant if I really wanted to work on vehicle physics, I can't, right? Because that's not the thing that I'm supposed to do. And the other thing that it leads to on larger teams is no one really has any perspective of what the whole game is, except for maybe the director, who's usually someone that doesn't play video games very much. So, like, I would be the animation programmer, and if there was some place that I had to go to test some animation and it wasn't fun to get there, I could mention it, but I couldn't do anything about it. On an indie game, you can be like, well, this sucks, I'm just gonna go change it. And, I mean, it sounds like what it should be to me, as opposed to the other side of it.
I'd like to talk a little bit about that too. Let's see. I think definitely in indie development you have this sort of method in which you can explore more things and you're wearing a lot of hats, and that's true. I don't know that like the big studios is all doom and gloom. For some people it's very fulfilling. They have their one thing they're good at and they focus on that and they just rock it, as we just said. But like that might be good for some people. I wouldn't want to like dissuade anybody from working at a larger studio just because at a smaller studio you get more creative flexibility, because I think they both have pros and cons, and definitely stability is one. Like we were talking about before, like they pay me an otter punch, that wasn't a joke. But like the thing is, I think a way forward is kind of nice because it's a studio, it's kind of a medium-sized studio, and we strike a pretty good balance. Like, I've never felt stifled or like I don't have a way to flex creativity there, because we're just like a bunch of people making games and kind of doing what we want to do. I keep seeing this image right now. For example, one of the titles that I directed was Mighty Milky Way on the DSiWare shop. It's a downloadable game, Nintendo DS, and that game was basically us just sort of dicking around. Like, it would be so funny if, like, at the end of the game, I'm not gonna spoil it. But like, okay, one of the examples, like in the tutorial, like you go through the tutorial, and as like a goof, we made the tutorial like really purposely, like really long-winded and obnoxious. And like at a big studio, they'd be like, what the heck are you doing? Or no, maybe they probably love that actually. Crap. Yeah, no, but we did like this crazy long-winded tutorial that was like totally the opposite of like what we normally would believe in. Like we want to teach the player intuitively, have them learn by example, not just by telling them. So, but instead, we thought it'd be really funny if we just like had like all this text and you just like tap through it, and at the end, it asks you like, would you like to view this tutorial again? And the only options are yes and very yes. And and both of them say you can view the tutorial again at any time by visiting the planetarium. But like, it's you can't like do that. Like I know like Skullgirls team talks about like a lot of like goofy things that you guys got to sneak in, and like that's just like such a fun thing to do. And like for me, similarly, like the boss of Mighty Milky Way was just like a drawing that we like a bunch of the guys were at lunch. Like literally, we were at Jack in the Box for lunch, and just like doing crap. And I don't remember who did it. It might have been like our creative director Matt Bozon, but he like drew this like cybernetic T-Rex that shoots laser beams and has like a bunch of crazy hands like coming out of the Jack in the Box. And like that'd be really funny if this was like the boss of the game.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's the we have like maybe 15 minutes left, but it's really trying to get through a lot of stuff. One thing I do want to touch on for sure is the collaborative nature of games. You know, you can't make a game on your own, and as you said, like in indie games, a lot of people wear a lot of hats. So games are very collaborative, and you know, for example, in Skullgirls, you guys became a very tightly knit group, and you know, James, I know, makes games with you know, a group of friends, and yeah, good job. And you know, and Derek, actually, we can start with that. Derek, can you talk a bit about TIG Source and like that community that's kind of fostered around collaborating to make games?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the resources that is definitely very helpful to have when you're a small developer. Is a community that you can hang out with and share ideas with, because you know, I think that is something that people would miss, like working the way I do, for example, where I'm literally in my bedroom working on games. That's it, and sleeping. But I do get a lot of sleep. I try to always sleep. Like that's the thing I try not to give up, because I'm just useless for that 8 hours. But you know, for me, like that's a way of working that really suits me. Because you know, I'm pretty introverted, and I like to I'm comfortable just working at home. But you know, you do miss out on I think working in a quote-unquote regular company, that kind of just interaction and that constant sort of sharing of ideas. But you know, I think having an online community to talk to is very helpful. So the TIG Source is a website that I run called it's short for the Independent Gaming Source. And it started out as just a news site, but now we've got the forums are really more of like the main part of the site now. And you get people just working on games and showing stuff off and meeting other people to do collaborations, and there's just a lot of, it's really just a lot of sharing, which I think is very important in any kind of creative field. And of course, you know, you want to spend most of your time doing that with your team. On Splunky, I work with one other guy, lead programmer Andy Hull. You know, he's on Google Chat, video chat, like all day with me, and we're just chatting. But yeah, I think, you know, TIG Source, game jam, stuff like that. You're talking about the Fuck This Jam, that type of stuff is just a great way to sort of get out there and you know, meet other people who are doing the same thing you are.
Actually, I think this is especially relevant because of the people that are joining me up here. I think the community for smaller studios is so tightly knit, and there's just all these talent and knowledge pools to... That's irrelevant. There's all these like talent and knowledge pools to learn from, and I always call I always call the Skullgirls team like my extended Way Forward family, because like we always like work on projects together. Like Mariel, you mentioned you've done stuff for Way Forward, Alex, and I mean like you're all on the radar, like seriously. But like I think that's one of the really excellent things about the smaller communities. Like everyone seems to kind of like know each other. If you don't know each other, it's not too difficult to connect, and everyone has something they can contribute and you can learn from. And I just think that's a really wonderful thing that you're not going to see at like a big studio that's just hiring, contracting people, just like bringing people on and you're working with the same people always, versus like you contract people and work with all different people. And And also like working with friends who are there to like give you advice and help you like stay in control of like the scope of the game and like make sure like you're not being like ridiculous. Actually, show of hands, like or that you're being like sufficiently ridiculous in the right way. Question: Who uses mouthwash? Like raise your hand. Like mouthwash, right, guys? Gentlemen? Yeah. Okay. Here's what you gotta do. Like if you wanna be like super cool indie, you go to like Walgreens or like Rite Aid, like wherever you like to go. And you get like the travel size scope mouthwash, okay? What you do is you put that on your desk. And the reason you do this is because like every time you look at it, it's a reminder that you have to keep the scope small.
That was so terrible.
It works, I swear to God. Also, you should probably use it, you know.
I wanted to say, I can't see you, so.
Hi, but go ahead.
I wanted to say really quickly that one of the other nice things about having a community is that you can talk to them, and especially as an indie developer, you can show them things like builds that aren't done yet. We got to take Skullgirls I got to take Skullgirls to like every tournament that I went to before the game came out. I got feedback from people. We had people on Shoryuken and Dustloop posting suggestions for like, I've always wanted to see this in a fighting game. Maybe want to try it out, and like things like holding down the pause button for a couple of frames to pause it so that you don't accidentally pause it in the middle of a tournament came from one of the people on Shoryuken like suggesting it. And at bigger companies, you never get any of that. I mean, the community exists for the small amount of time right after the game comes out to make sure that people bought it, and then that's it. You know, or if you like release a PC version and there are mod tools, then the community exists for the purposes of making sure that the mod tools won't blow up anyone's computer. But like to the development team, for the most part, there is no community when you're really big, and that was one of the really nice things about working on a project this size, was like being able to get feedback from everybody and actually do something about it and show them things that at big companies they'd be like, no, you don't want people to see the hitboxes, it's debugged, that doesn't happen. So, go ahead.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I'm very sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
I can rewind that whole thing.
Yeah, on that note, I should mention Spelunky actually got its start on the TIG source forums. And when I released it, it was like version 0.8, and it really snowballed from there with people giving me feedback. Yeah, the feedback was like invaluable, and I made a lot of changes to the game between the first release and 1.0. And it was not just the TIG source forums, but like the Something Awful forums and Penny Arcade. I think without those communities, I don't think the XBLA version of Spelunky ever would have gotten done, because the reason why it got made in the first place was because someone took it to Microsoft. Jonathan Blow, the guy who made Braid, took it to Microsoft, and I was able to show them like, hey, all these people really like the game, because of, and all of that buzz was just created from these forums. And not only that, but Minecraft, which is a much bigger example than Spelunky, got its start on the TIG source forums and on the IRC channel. I think that was the first place that Notch put the game out, was on the TIG source forums, and it's actually really funny because that thread is still there. And you read some of the comments, and it's people saying like, hey, this is pretty fun, like if you keep at it, it could really be something big someday. I don't know, it's a pretty fun like historical thread, I think, at this point. But we also have competitions on the forums, and a lot of those, it's like a short deadline, it's like a month long, but a lot of those games, people polish them up after the competition, and they turned into real products that ended up being pretty successful. So yeah, I think it's definitely been good for people.
Okay. Yeah, we're almost out of time, so you want to do like a super fast lightning round of Q&A? Anyone have questions? I start at the back because people in the back usually don't get things.
So there's a lot of indie developers, especially in the Bay Area, and I think that in the milieu of the game development, like hardcore gamers who pay attention to the indie scene, like there are definitely like you guys up here who are like the darlings of that scene. But there's also a lot of developers who like perhaps like they come out with a release of something that they spent like years on, but like it does okay, but they still have like expenses and overhead that they have to look over. And sometimes you guys have a few releases and maybe it doesn't do as well as you guys needed it to, and you guys still have to pay your employees and you have your rent or whatever else. How do you guys deal with the business development side and perhaps even the marketing, like just all that production overhead, and just at the post-release stuff for making sure that you guys can pay your bills and all that jazz, if that makes sense.
The people who worked in Skullgirls are owed a lot of money. We didn't get it, that's it.
Girls Kool-Aid.
Yeah, that one's pretty easy. We cry a lot.
Don't be in it for success. Be in it to just make like cool shit. And, like, okay, I said the S word. Oh, I did. Okay. But I guess just keep making awesome stuff with teams however you can string it together. Like, just keep doing awesome stuff, and like, maybe it's a numbers game. If you just make enough games, like one of them will take off. I know that's what happened with like Angry Birds. Like they just made a bunch of crappy games, and like Angry Birds, for some reason, it started with the letter A, got to the top of the list. People saw it, you know. You never know what's gonna happen. Just like keep trying. And most important for just game development in general is get a lot of the F word in. He's looking at me like, the F word is fun. This is a quote from Masahiro Sakurai, the creator of Kirby and Smash Brothers. It was something to the extent of, if we can't have fun creating, how can we be expected to create fun? And I think that resonated with me.
I have another quote from Sakurai, which is, "We never want to make a game like Smash Melee again." So he's covered both ends of that. But yeah, a really short answer to that is basically what Mariel said and what he said combined, which is, you make it for the people that enjoy it. And you might end up really sad at the end of it, but the thing that makes you happy is that you made it for people that enjoyed it, and they enjoyed it. Even if it's only like 3 people.
Is there a way to ask you more questions after this? I have a lot of questions. Out of time.
Out of time.
It's like hit me up in the restroom, like urinal.
Yeah.
Cool. Urinal, you would be
Yeah, unfortunately we're out of time, and I wish we could get to more Q&A, but you guys, if you guys are free, they will be available for questions. And thank you all for this panel. It was great.
And oh yeah, again, everybody go play I'm Okay.